Okay, now look. It's Romania Black, and I know I'm watching ahead to episode 3 before this series starts on Patreon YouTube, but I at least wanted to get through the first 3 episodes before the series started getting comments and all of that jazz. And honestly, I thought I would get to episode 3 a lot sooner than I ended up getting. I ended up getting bogged down, not necessarily bogged down. I'm watching things that I want to watch, but I got caught up in other shows on my channel, and this episode kept getting pushed back, and I was like, no, I want to get to it before. So it's actually been, if you can believe it, it's been like almost 2 weeks since I've watched episode 2. And I know you're like, Romania, it ended on a cliffhanger. And I was like, I know, but I also wanted to give myself plenty of time to watch this episode and settle in to get ready for the roller coaster of whatever is going to happen in episode 3. Because usually in a series, I have my rule of 8. We're not there to rule of 8 yet. But usually in a short series as well, you have your like 3 episode mark that the third episode's like, if they're going to hook you, they're going to hook you on that third episode. Here we are. So I'm excited. I went back and re-listened to my discussion for episode 2 this afternoon, and just to refresh myself with Shirakawa, with Odakawa, with all the names, with Rui, with Imai, with Dobu, who has a gun pointed to Odakawa's head, so that's great. And then Shirakawa wants him to meet up at the clinic, and it's like, so there's a lot going on. And that episode is not a cliffhanger, so I've had to wait a long time, and I'm not waiting anymore for this episode. So we need to dive in, see what happens, and I'm excited to see what Dobu is going to do with Odakawa. There's no camera in his taxi, so he can't record anything that happens, conveniently enough. So real quick before we start, I want to give a shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. If you're watching this on YouTube and you don't want to wait until next week to see episode 4, you can go over to my Patreon, and for a measly $5 a whole month, you can see all the shows on my channel a week earlier than everybody else on YouTube. You also get a chance to vote in the polls if there are polls. There have been some going on this month, and you also get a chance to be in the Discord as well and talk about this show and see what everybody's saying about it. So with that being said, our philanthropy tier get a shout out in all of my videos. So I want to give a shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Be Happy, to Bisa, to Damage3245, to Dana, to Devorin, to Destiny Marie, to Danger Zone, as well as Eric, Ichu, El Cuno, Ghostly Turnip, Show, El Freya, Linden, Liam Polzel, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Willie Morris, Translucent Men, Sunspots, and Shimoyama. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, let's get started, shall we? I've waited long enough. I shan't wait anymore. So we're going to start episode 3 of Odd Taxi and see where this wild cliffhanger takes us. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. Well, things are heating up, I guess. Oh my gosh. So we need to talk about this episode. There's a lot going on. Where do we even start? This episode was actually really kind of self-contained to just being Odakawa and Dobu, and then Eiji, and then the one Dobu's boss, and then Shirakawa. But then there was also like little other things going on as well that seem like they're all related. They're going to be related. Again, this entire series is a giant web that's just all slinging around itself. And we, the audience, there are things happening that I feel we're not going to know how they connect until much later on in the series, which is exciting. So let's dive into this. So we have the whole thing with, God, Eiji and the boss. So Eiji, and I know he has another name. I know they talk about his other name, but Eiji is the one that is going off with, the girl from the band. It's Shiho, I think that's right. And she's in the band with Rui. Which is interesting because, again, we talked about the connections where Rui has the connection to the manager, Yamamoto, who we don't know who Yamamoto was calling. Yamamoto was calling somebody, but their conversation was about Odakawa. So there's a connection there, right? Meanwhile, I can't believe, so borrowed plumes. What is is a plume a feather? So what is a plume? A plume is a soft, fluffy feather, borrowed feathers. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. What is the symbolism of a plume? I'm curious. Symbolic things of peacock plumes. Symbolism. We don't know if it's a peacock plume, but what could it possibly be? Symbolism of feathers are talking about wealth. Interesting. Those are all. I'm curious. A symbol of honor. I'm going to be curious what this means later on. Interesting. Could be connecting to the spiritual realm. Well, Odakawa revealed he's not afraid of death, so maybe that's tied to it. Okay, we'll go back into that. Interesting. This is beware of borrowed plumes, of borrowed feathers. I guess beware of borrowed wealth might be tied into it, because there's a lot of talk of Dobu's like got this bad rap, but he seems tied up with the one guy. Lots of people are tied up in some shady business, and I don't know where that's gonna go, but oh my god. So I think the first guy to freestyle was Kin. I keep thinking that the conversations happening in the background are going to add up at some point. But yeah, so Eiji is all excited about Shiho, the 18-year-old from Tokyo, who, first of all, there's like a 77% match on here for him and her, which it's like, what? But then also, I'm like, my dude. And I know some people in the comments are probably going to say, oh, well, my folks got together and they have 18 years apart in their age. And that's cool. I'm glad that worked out for your parents. I'm 37. I would not in any capacity remotely find an 18-year-old attractive. Do you know how dumb 18-year-olds are? And I say that because I was 18 once and I was an idiot. So no, 18-year-olds are not mature. They are not, their brain has not fully, and I know somebody in the comments will be like, well, the whole thing about brains developing, no. I'm not talking about scientifically. When you're 18 years old, I'm sorry for all those 18-year-olds watching, you need to know this. And it's important that you know this. You don't have the world figured out and it's okay. but it's just like an 18-year-old. You may have been an 18-year-old that went through a lot of life experience. You may have had a hard life at 18. I don't think Shiho has, okay? So Shiho, I don't think she's had a hard knock life. So I'm just saying that most typical 18-year-olds that did not grow up in the streets or in like a situation that involves a lot of trauma, most average 18-year-olds, they just haven't had a lot of life experience. They've literally spent most of their life in a high school or a grade school. Just, if you are 41 years old, I'm sorry, but you should not be preying on 18-year-old girls. And I think that says a lot for Eiji of kind of how pathetic he is. Because I'm sorry, if you can't find a woman in her late 20s to 40s that fits with you and you have to resort to an 18-year-old, that's kind of sleazy. And that really puts you in a bad light. And Odakawa kind of gets onto him about it. And I'm glad Odakawa did. But I'm like, and I like Eiji as a character. I really like Eiji as a character, but I'm like, my dude. And I know in Japan, it's socially acceptable. Hell, there's a whole plot line in Classmates that's behind this whiteboard coon. There's a whole plot line in Classmates where it works out. But my point is, girl is 18 years old. Back the frick off, my dude. And I think it says more of how kind of pathetic he is that he can't find a relationship with someone his own age, and so he's preying on this girl. So I'm like, ugh. But I don't think it's going to go well for him. I don't think things are going to go well for him. So we're going to see where that goes. But anyway, I also think that she's totally catfishing him. Not catfishing him and like her being 18 or whatever, but I think she's totally duping him and leading him astray. We're going to talk about that. So basically, they were being followed at the end, followed by the two men. I'm pretty sure the one guy was in the bar. But we'll get to that whole thing, and I have a theory about her and him and that. So the guy that's been in the sauna with him, like, I don't think he's an anteater, but he's something similar. He was in the sauna with them the whole time, so he kind of knows about this whole Shirakawa crush that Odakawa has developed, unless he was on his damn phone the whole time in the sauna, but I don't think that was the case. I do like his little Daruma tattoo. That's pretty cool. But so, genius. Genius. The fact this conversation happened on the phone and I didn't even see the earbud at first because it was only in one ear. Let me be honest with you all. I cannot stand being in public with people like the man with the Daruma tattoo. I can't stand it because there's people that walk around with the earpieces and stuff and it's in the ear where you can't see. So if I were Eiji, I would have done the same thing. I would have heard this guy talking and been like, oh, how this guy didn't have another earpiece in and didn't hear Eiji, I have no clue. I guess he had zoned him out. But I hate when people have these conversations on the phone out loud without holding the phone up to their head so you don't know. You don't know the visual cue that they're on the phone. Instead, they have these stupid earpieces in, and then you're just standing there and they start talking. You're like, well, hello. And then you realize you're not in the conversation, but they're standing right beside you. And you're like, it's just, I'm like, go outside or go in a bathroom or somewhere, but like right by this dude. So then he says, hey, and yeah, he's like, yes. What's that? Yeah, because then Eiji says yes. He's like, what's that taxi driver's name? And he's like, oh, you mean Odakawa. And the thing is, he looks straightforward the whole time, so it makes sense. But I was with Eiji. I mean, the way the conversation flowed, it all added up. Oh my God. And he says, Odakawa. He's like, that's his name. It all makes sense now. And he's like, do you know the missing high school girl case in Arima? And he's like, yes. He's like, rumor has it she got into Odakawa's taxi. And the thing is, he kind of leans his head towards Eiji, so I could see why Eiji would think that. That's so wild. And he's like, what? But we haven't heard anything about the case since then, right? And he's like, you're right. The conversation, it both adds up, but it also makes sense that it wasn't happening with Eiji. This is just insane. So the invitation request was withdrawn. And so Eiji asks, did they find her? And that's why it was withdrawn. He says, no, they received a message from her second hand. So basically the case against the missing girl, we're going to put her up here. The missing girl, the case has been withdrawn. And it was from a message second hand. Well, hell, that might not have been from her. They don't know. We're going to find out more about that later. Interesting. And then Eiji thinks that she's okay, and that's it. And he says, I'm allegedly the reason that she went missing. And he's like, what did you do? And he's like, could you investigate her whereabouts? Oh my gosh. He's like, why you want me to do it? It's Don Chan's daughter. And he says later. And then that's when Eiji realizes that he's on the phone. Oh my God. Oh, okay. So Eiji, luckily, is probably not going to pursue the whereabouts of this girl, but he's heard that whole conversation. He knows that information. So that's one other person that knows what he probably shouldn't have. Again, why this guy took the phone call with this guy sitting right next to him and didn't expect him to like figure out what he was saying. I mean, maybe he didn't think that him and Odakawa were friends, but I guess this guy in the sauna didn't realize who Odakawa was and that he was literally 5 feet in front of him. That's insane. That's insane, y'all. That is crazy. So apparently she's Don Chan's daughter. Who's somebody that Dobu knows, Don Chan's daughter, and they're all trying to figure out where she could be at, and they want Odakawa's information or him to like be able to give them tips or whatever. So the one good thing about this whole like the tension between Dobu and Odakawa pretty much diffused the tension pretty easy in this situation, which talented man for being able to do that. That was pretty cool. He's like, you'll pay your fare, won't you? I like that Odakawa was not scared of Dobu or the gun. I thought that was really good. And Odakawa is surprisingly good at reading people and assessing the situation, like calling the gun a toy. And then we flash back to, okay, the one guy is Dobu's boss. And he's sitting there asking about the taxi driver's name. So what did he say about him? He said, rumor has it she got into Odakawa's taxi. We haven't heard anything about the case since then. The investigation request was withdrawn. Okay, and so he said they heard from the missing girl. No, okay, so they haven't heard from her directly. And then he's like, well, what does she matter? Why do you care about a high school girl? So yeah, and that's when he tells about Don-chan. Okay. So then we cut back to Dobu asking over, and Odakawa's like, look, I gave my dash cam data to Big Diamond a while ago, and now Odakawa knows that Dobu has the data. So we're going to put Odakawa here. Odakawa knows that Dobu has the data from his dash cam. And he's like, well, if you could bring that back, that'd be awfully great if you could bring that back to me, please. And he says, it sounds like you and Diamond are involved. He also knows that Big Diamond is with Dobu, working in cahoots with him, but not Little Diamond. The little brother is not in cahoots, and the little brother seems to be heavily influenced by Big Diamond, so it's interesting. So his request is that he wants Odakawa to not say anything about what's going on, and he wants his help. And I like that Odakawa's like, look, your friend already told me to keep my mouth shut, so what else do you want from me? He's like, what else could you want? He said a wanted criminal armed with a gun would kill me if I told the police. In fact, there's a wanted armed criminal in here right now. And he's like, no, I don't want you to tell anybody. He's like, just tell them that you lost your dash cam data. And he's like, well, who would be anybody? Like who? And what do you want help with? He's like, I want you to let me know if anybody asks about the camera footage. And he's like, and if I refuse, he's like, I'm going to kill you. So at that point, Odakawa was way more calm and collected than I would ever be. He like does the turn signal and he turns on the SOS light on his taxi, which is love that for him. But he's just trying to be calm and collected throughout all of this, which is amazing. He's like, why are you so desperate to find this girl? He's like, you gotta give me some information if you want me to help you. So he says that my boss is looking for the missing girl. And then he's a daughter of a classmate. Okay, so Dobu's pretty old. Dobu is probably around Odakawa's age then, seemingly. And so would be the boss and everybody. Okay, so it's one of their friend's daughters. And that's why it's so important that they find her. And apparently this guy with the Daruma tattoo is part of the reason why she's missing. For some reason. So she's a daughter of a classmate. And he's like, well, the police suspect me, but I think I'm being set up. He's like, I have nothing to do with it. And so Odakawa gets some pretty good information pieces out of this conversation. He finds out that Diamond's the only one really working with Dobu, not all of the police, which is really good. And then he's like, so you're not actually involved. And that Dobu is not involved in her disappearance. And I think that it checks out because Dobu is like, he's the name on the streets. If there's any like petty crime going on, they're like, oh, it was probably Dobu. So he has a bad reputation anyway. And it just happens to make him a convenient scapegoat for anybody that's trying to pass the blame on to someone else. So that's interesting. I believe Dobu in this moment. So he's like, I thought that you were connected with the missing persons case. Here's the thing. We don't know if Odakawa is not connected to the missing persons case. We don't know. He doesn't deny it, but he doesn't confirm it. It's just kind of like thrown in the air. And Odakawa has a good poker face, except when it comes to Shirakawa. But Odakawa has a pretty good poker face. So I'm like, he might be involved. Because he says, apparently you've been talking to someone in your apartment. And then Dobu, he's like, at first I thought I'd get my hands on your dash cam data so I could blackmail you with it. And he's like, so you don't suspect me anymore then? He's like, no, I still think you might have done it. But the investigation's been withdrawn though. So here's the thing. The person missing, Don-chan's daughter, could still be at Odakawa's. We don't know that she's not. And Odakawa does not deny it in this moment. He's just like, oh, so you don't suspect me anymore? He's basically was like, so I'm off the hook. You don't think that I'm a suspected criminal or connected to this? Okay, cool. But here's the thing with Dobu. Dobu's whole thing is that he suspects Odakawa is involved, but there is nothing to gain. There's nothing for him to gain anymore from pursuing, seeing if Odakawa actually was involved in her kidnapping. Even though there's no reward for him, I would think he'd want to tell his boss if he found out, but... So Odakawa was like, well, the family must be okay if they've withdrawn the request, so everything should be fine. Why are you bothering me? And then Dobu says they got word she ran away because of the relationship between my boss and her dad. So I'm like, because of the relationship between his boss and her dad, I don't think this is going in BL territory. Although I'd be all for it. Y'all know me. I'd be 1,000 times down. Like, yeah. I don't think that's why she ran away, though. I don't think she ran away because her dad was dating someone else. So we think that for some reason, the tattoo boss of Dobu, whatever his relationship with the dad is the reason she ran away. Man, I wish it was that the boss guy was getting into an affair with her dad. That'd be really juicy and gossipy, but I don't think that's the reason. But yeah, I'm curious. But it's all so vague still. We don't know exactly what is going on, but the family's not happy about it. They've just withdrawn the request. And so Odakawa's like, look, at this point I'm curious. Might as well ask. If it's not me you think is doing it, and it's not you, then who do you think is involved? And he says the only guy that could have put her up to running away is a guy named Yano. Yano, who's this sassy looking porcupine with his little hip cocked out, sassy porcupine. Apparently he has a scooter in the OP. So we think that this guy Yano is involved. And Yano is his kohai. He's like, my job is collecting payments. There's not much point in telling you about it, so I won't. But it's about obligation or principle. Yano only thinks about collecting more money than me. So Yano's whole goal is just to outdo Dobu, which would kind of connect to the OP of him skating ahead of him. That kind of makes sense. So he just wants to outdo Dobu. That's his main job. And maybe... Now, how outdoing Dobu connects to him convincing this girl to run away, I don't know. Also, she's high school aged, which would fit around the same age group as the cat that's in the band with Shiho and Rumi. So, I don't know. He doesn't work for obligation or principle. Yano doesn't like me. And so Odakawa's like, so basically there's no point in us questioning Yano. He seems like he doesn't have any morals and would not be very much help in giving information. And Dobu's like, yeah. So if someone comes to take your dash cam data, just in all likelihood it's going to be Yano or one of his henchmen, and I want your help and for you to let me know when that happens. Interesting. Okay. And the dash cam data has not been provided to Tattoo Man, so... A tricky web that we've weaved. Yano's always telling everyone that all I do is petty jobs. So it's reached the boss's ears as well. Okay. He knows what he's doing. So it's interesting. I like the idea that Dobu has pride and that I like that Odakawa says, you're not going to kill me because then you'll get arrested and you'll lose face. And that's not what you're about. So you're not going to do that. Interesting. So he's like, what you want me to do is help you find evidence and use it to bring Yano down. And he's like, yes. And he's like, I'm not doing that. I love that Odakawa was like, you're a criminal. Thanks for telling me your plans and your backstory and everything, but I'm not helping you. He's like, I'm not interested in helping someone like that. I love that Odakawa keeps his principles and his morals and is like, I'm not a shady guy like you. Now, we suspect that Shirakawa is stealing drugs from the hospital. So for Odakawa to turn down the option of helping at the cost of possibly his own life, we think that Shirakawa, if Odakawa finds out she's been stealing the drugs, if he's going to be disappointed and mad at her and she's going to feel really bad about that. I don't know. We're not there yet, but that's an interesting turning point. And so yeah, Odakawa confronts Dobu and says, you're not gonna kill me. And that's when the cop sees him. Now, damn it. If it had been the younger brother, this story might have been very, very different. But it wasn't. It was the older brother because he doesn't have the glasses. And they basically just chide Odakawa and let Dobu get off the hook. He's like, be quiet or you'll bother the neighbors. He's like, there's something wrong with this driver. And he's like, and that's when Odakawa's like, how much has he been paying you? I love how Odakawa asks that. He's like, your light's confusing. And Dobu just got off the hook. So then the brother says, what was that about? He's like, I thought I heard them talking about a gun. And then Big Diamond says, can you believe anything that a taxi driver says? And interestingly enough, I do agree with Dobu. Little Diamond is an idiot. Maybe not an unobserving idiot, but an idiot nonetheless. And his big brother is instantly able to convince him that Odakawa is not trustworthy. Which is dangerous, because if Odakawa finds out something really important later on and goes to the police, will Little Diamond not believe him and spread that word because of what his brother said? I don't know. But he's like, damn those taxi drivers. Now, this scene was interesting. We had a moment here where the big brother, after he says, damn those taxi drivers, is like introspectively looking at his brother. And we get this flashback where there's all of these animals and this ambulance at this stoplight. And there's a car crash. But then it looks like a human hand. But I don't know. It looks like a human hand, but I don't know. So I don't know if Big Diamond has something against Odakawa for what happened during this accident, or if there's more to the story than we know. The mystery deepens. The mystery damn deepens. And I'm like, what do we do with this? So anyway, Dobu's like, take me to Shinjuku. And so he does. And then he basically is like, you took quite a risk. Are you not afraid to die? And he's like, it's not that. He's like, I'm really afraid to die. Unbelievably so. But I'd rather die than get involved in what sounds like a pain in the ass. So he tries to pass it off as it's not him having this sense of justice or whatever. And he's like, I really am afraid to die, but this would be much more inconvenient and could possibly lead to my death much sooner than just me facing you head on like this. And so then Dobu threatens to hurt his friends. And then he mentions Shirakawa. And that's when Odakawa gets a little nervous and has a sweat drop. I like Odakawa. Odakawa being in love with Shirakawa is so cute. And she's 28. She's a solid decade older than Shiho. Let that sink in. A decade older. Like I feel like for being 41, now granted, the difference between, it's still 13 years difference between Odakawa and Shirakawa, but 28 is fine. It's acceptable. You are a full-fledged adult that's nearly 30 by that point, so you can make those decisions and it's okay. You've experienced and lived enough in the world. It's fine. And maybe lived enough in the world is not the right way to put it, because there are 30-year-olds that have not gone through as much shit as like a 10-year-old in some instances, right? I know students that are in high school that have gone through way more than I will have ever gone through by that point in my life or where I'm at now. But I guess from a romantic relationship perspective, a 28-year-old has potentially, not always, case in point, preaching to the choir, but a 28-year-old, even if they've not had those sexual or romantic experiences, they know and they've seen enough of other experiences from other people potentially to make good decisions that are well informed. That's what I'm wanting to say. An 18-year-old, I do not think with a 41-year-old could make well informed decisions about a relationship. And there is kind of a power dynamic that is created there. I'm sorry, but there is. And it would be the same way if it was a 41-year-old woman with an 18-year-old young man. It would be the same thing. It'd be like, nope, there is a power dynamic there. There is a lack of experience on one side. It's not as well informed. I can't do it. If you're fine with it, cool, kudos to you. But it's not my jam. Not my jam. So yeah, the one thing is, I think Shirakawa, I cannot decide with Shirakawa. I can't decide if she legit likes him or if there's some kind of trickery involved. I can't decide. And I think it's because she's not truthful about the pills, if she's the one stealing the pills. But again, we're just led to believe she's the one stealing the pills, but the visuals have showed us that. So it's like, my thing is, if she were honest with him about the pills, I think I wouldn't feel so bad about it if she confided that within him. But the fact that she's holding that back makes me afraid that she might do something drastic because she doesn't want to be found out, and that would hurt Odakawa. But I don't know. But the fact that she stayed on the bench and waited for him and genuinely looks sad when at first she doesn't see him makes me think that she might at least like him. Now, Dobu goes back into the forest and buries the gun, which I guess because he doesn't want to be caught with it, which is interesting. Huckleberry, I don't know why that would be. So meanwhile, Odakawa finds the message. It looks like maybe it was from 2 hours ago. I don't know. Was this at 4 a.m.? Was this at 4 a.m.? I think this was like 4 a.m. That is crazy. So anyway, we have in this, he turns the corner, and that's where we get this weird moment. He's in such a rush to get to her that he nearly runs this guy over. Like, this guy is standing there with his arms up in the air. Like, I don't know. It looks almost like he's being held up at gunpoint in that moment. But I don't know if he's being held at gunpoint or if he was just like frozen in shock, because on his phone is something about a super rare dodo. Like, what is the deal? And so then he loses his phone and it says super rare dodo. Is it on that game that the one guy was playing? Maybe? Does his phone get wrecked? If his phone gets wrecked because Odakawa nearly ran him over, that might be interesting. Okay. I don't know. I don't know what the point of the dodo was and why he was in the alleyway like that. But yeah, and then Odakawa, there she is. Okay. And he's like, do you have some business with me? And then they sit on the park bench. I like that their relationship is so intriguing to me. Their back and forth is very like, she kind of like, kind of ribs him a little bit. She's like, oh, those fast forward videos, of the fixed point camera. She's like, watching those makes me feel so anxious. The sun setting in the blink of the eye, the stars moving, And Odakawa's like, are you mad at me because I was late? And she's like, what, who, me? It's like her passively aggressively ribbing him is interesting. And she's like, I don't believe there's such a thing as wasted time, but they say time is money, And then what does he say? Well, he's like, why not take things slowly then? And she says, well, try saying that again, but meaner this time. They have an interesting dynamic where she kind of like is trying to like pull stuff out of him. No sexual innuendo intended. And he says, well, why not enjoy a bit of sherry and a fudge brownie? And she's like, that sounds a bit American. I'm like, to be fair, it does. What? Indulgence? Like that? What? Your Snyder mark has a rather American quality to it. And then I'm so glad that Odakawa actually talks to her and says, you don't want to be friends with me. And she's like, well, what are you talking about? And he actually is honest with her and says, I've got Yakuzas coming after me. It could be dangerous. I'm like, I'm glad he finally came out and communicated that with her. That's amazing. Because I was not expecting him to be so forward with her and honest with her and telling her like it is. Okay, cool. I also can't believe after waiting all that time that he got out of the cab from Dobu that easily. But in the long run, Dobu was just wanting to kind of like tap Odakawa as somebody that if he notices anything to get a hold of him. Whether or not Odakawa actually will do that in the future, I don't know. But it was a nice way for us to get some exposition about Yano and about other people that are possibly looking for Odakawa. So the question is the person that Yamamoto was talking to, Is it Dobu's boss? Is it his own boss? Is it someone connected to Yano? We don't know. We don't know. And she's like, despite how I look, I used to practice capoeira. And she does like this, like, gymnastic moves. It looks like, it's really cute. And she has like the little kick. And he's like, that was surprising. I thought a Bollywood movie was about to start. The Bollywood movie comment where she's doing the dance. It did feel like a dance number was about to happen. That's so funny. So I want to know what is capoe? Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not saying it right. Capoeira dance. So it's an Afro-Brazilian martial art and game that includes elements of dance, acrobatics, music, and spirituality. It likely originated from enslaved Mubundu people in the kingdom of Ndongo in present-day Angola. The people had a formal military in which soldiers were professionally trained for combat. When they were captured and sold into the Atlantic slave trade, they would have brought these fighting abilities with them to Brazil, where it developed into capoeira. It is known for its acrobatic and complex maneuvers, often involving hands on the ground and inverted kicks. All I can think about is the Emperor's New Groove. All I can think of is the Emperor as a llama face, and him just using like some kung fu moves. Some martial arts moves. Okay, I'm getting flashbacks to that, which she's an alpaca, so that kind of adds up. It emphasizes flowing movements rather than fixed stances. The ginga, a rocking step, is usually a focal point of the technique. There's some anime where this was focused on. There's some anime I feel where this was a thing. I don't think it was Spike and Cowboy Bebop, but there's some other anime where this kind of fighting style, I feel like it was in that. But I can't think. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of which one it is. Interesting. Okay. So yeah. I think it's cool. It's from, although debated, it's accepted that the origin of the word comes from the Tupi words ka'a, which is forest, and pau, which is round, referring to the areas of low vegetation in the Brazilian interior where the fugitive slaves would hide. Interesting. I mean, the martial arts style fits her to a T, so that makes sense. So, okay. Anyway, she's like, come on. I like that they take this moment to talk about her interests in this fighting style and that she feels really comfortable talking with Odakawa about this. I like it. She's actually like sitting here talking about this interest that she has, and he's listening to her, and it's really sweet. It's like it's kind of like a date, like what you would do. And he's like, no, and he interrupts her just to tell her that he doesn't think the fighting style is going to be enough to take care of the Yakuza men that are coming after her. And she's like, well, how do you know my martial arts skills are makeshift? She's like, I might be a badass. How do you know that? And she's like, would it upset you if someone called you a makeshift taxi driver? And he's like, well, yes, I'd be upset because that's my job. But this martial arts skill is not your job. If I called you a makeshift nurse, then it'd be bad. But he's like, no, we're not talking about this. So I just love their banter back and forth. It's super cute. And then they talk about like the meaning of the words. I love that they have these little like spatting moments, but then they immediately get over it. Like, I'm kind of falling for them as a couple, which is crazy because I don't 100% trust her. After this scene where she does the cute martial arts with him and everything, I like 75% trust her. But there's just something, the fact she's not talking about the drugs that she's been stealing and we don't know all about them, and that she's keeping something from Odakawa, it makes me think that I can't fully trust her yet. But I want to fully trust her because these two are adorable together. And he's like, it might be dangerous meeting like this. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter. I'm an adult. I can protect myself. And the way that he looks at her when he's like, because he's really distraught about this. He doesn't want her to get hurt. And he knows she's right and that she's an adult and this is her decision. But he says, what is your goal? Why are you seeing me? What do you gain from meeting with me? And she's like, well, am I bothering you? She doesn't answer the question. That's so frustrating. He's like, would it bother you to occasionally meet and chat like this? She's like, I find being around you relaxing, Odakawa-san. I just don't know. The fact that she kind of gives it an open-ended questions, I don't know. I don't know how to feel. Like, she doesn't just say that she likes him. She doesn't come, she's so open and honest about everything else, but she doesn't just come out and say that she likes him. And it almost feels in the moment like they're at a therapy session. So I don't know if she's trying to have a breakthrough with him. I don't know. I can't decide. I can't decide how I feel about it. I would love for them to be a ship, but I just don't know. So she says that she has to work the day shift. And he's like, well, I'll give you a free ride. And she's like, oh, yes, you are a taxi driver. You know, and Eiji had said that she was just mooching off of rides from him. So who knows if that's actually the case. So meanwhile, the one comedian from the Homo sapiens that got offered the segment, the TV segment, we get it. It's asking people around Kichijoji to lunch. The What's for Lunch segment. And he's like, in this segment, we talk to people around town and eat lunch with them. It sounds like an on-the-street thing. It's like, it's already our 4th episode. We've received absolutely no response. I'm actually kind of worried. I like the one guy's like, we're shooting all 4 of these episodes in one sitting, so of course you wouldn't get any response. I don't know. His comedic timing, I don't know if it's going to work out for him. Interesting. So, anyway, we go back to the bar where Eiji is like fawning over Shiho. In the background, I'm pretty sure is the fox that's at the end of the episode. Pretty sure it's the same guy. When the purple cloak, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy in the purple cloak. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, might be him. He had the little mustache. We'll see if he shows up in that last scene or not. So Eiji asks Odakawa about Shirakawa, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it. It's not worth mentioning. I don't know. But yeah, he's like, and so Eiji reveals that he pretty much peaked in high school, which surprises no one. I was like, oh my God, Eiji would be the one that peaks in high school. He would be. He would be that guy that just peaked in high school and never got any better. He's like, well, I was pretty popular. I played baseball. It's like, what position did you play? Were you a pitcher or a catcher, Eiji? These things matter. Were you a shortstop? These things matter. Tell us secrets. And then he reveals that, you know, the secret that many of us figure out after you become an adult, especially, you know, if you're popular in high school, once you're an adult, everybody gets pretty high standards regarding your appearance and your work performance. I'm like, but just because people get high standards, Eiji, that's not their problem if you don't meet up to those standards. And that doesn't mean that you start looking for girls to date that don't have those standards figured out. It's like, I like Eiji, but he is sleazy when it comes to that. And so Odakawa, I relate a lot to Odakawa in this moment where he's like, as I've gotten older, I've started to give up on the whole thing. And then Eiji's like, well, but look at you. You've got Shirakawa. He's like, in the marriage marketplace, that's the thing. And Odakawa's like, why is a 28-year-old nurse interested in me? It's that special feeling that outshines your specs. And he's like, I compare my feelings to Jupiter before, but I don't really understand attraction or romance myself. So he says that his attraction towards her is like at Jupiter right now, which is super cute. But I understand, like, Odakawa is kind of like on the aromantic, possible ace spectrum, which good for him. Welcome to the clubs. But yeah, I kind of understand Odakawa and what he's saying, and that once you hit like your 40s, honestly, my coworkers and I have talked about this, dating in your 30s and 40s. I guess if you live in a metropolitan area, it's probably nice. You've got lots of options to choose from. In a rural area, it sucks. Because in a rural area, it's either people that are not interested in dating, because those exist. There are people that are either not interested in a partner, they are already married, they're going through a divorce, and I ain't got no time for that, or they're terrible. Those are your 4 options. They're either not what you're interested in, they're divorced and you ain't got no time for that, they're married, or they don't want a relationship themselves. In a rural area, those are your 4 options. And the others are nowhere to be seen. So I get where Odakawa is coming from. I relate to him a lot. He's like, I thought that these were concepts that would have nothing to do with me. It's so cute. He makes the little origami alpaca. It's awesome. And he's like, I'm not that confident, though. And Eiji's like, look at you. You're in love. he's like, well, don't lecture me on love. That's aggravating coming from you. So then I'm glad Odakawa kind of gets a little bit aggravated about the girl that Eiji is seeing. Because he's like, really? He's like, what if she's messing with you? What if she's trying to trick you? Because this seems odd that an 18-year-old girl would want to go out with you. And so then he's like, I'm not saying this out of... I love how he says, I'm not saying this out of jealousy. And he just puts a kibosh on that, like, instantly. He's like, I'm not doing this because I'm jealous. But you need to think about this girl and what you just told me about yourself. So, you know, you've never met her before. How do you know she's not tricking you? Or how do you know this isn't real, you know, or a scam or something? And he knocks Eiji down and takes the phone. But then when he looks again, it says college graduate and he has a 20 million income. And I agree with Odakawa. Odakawa is like, this is lying to this girl. This girl is trying to get with you because she sees dollar signs probably, and that you have a lot of money and that you're educated. He's like, how do you know she's not tricking you? How do we know as the audience that this girl saw him on the dating site? And again, she's in the band with Rui and the one girl, her name starts with a Y. But they're having a rough time as a band with their debut. They're possibly going to split up. Rumi's getting ready to go do her solo career, I'm sure. What if this Shio girl is seeing the writing on the wall and she's like, but what if we had a generous sponsor to sponsor the group? What if she's trying to trick Eiji into sponsoring their band? And then he's like, oh, I actually don't have money. What if that's the case? Yeah. But he's like, but I still want to dream. I'm like, that's cool that you want to dream, but don't drag a girl down with you and trick her because you want to feel good about yourself. That's not cool. And I think Odakawa is like, that's not cool. And he has to like turn away almost like from secondhand embarrassment. But then he gets a text from her saying that she's an Arakawa and wants to see him. And he drunkenly runs her way. And then Shirakawa, meanwhile, has called Odakawa to say that Goriki's missing. Goriki is the gorilla doctor. So Goriki being missing is a problem. I don't like the fact that he's missing. I don't like that at all. That's not good. That's not good at all. What does that entail? And then she's like, I can't get in touch with him. What should I do? I don't know. And the dark, like, ominous clouds coming up. Like, what do we do? Meanwhile, as it starts to rain, Eiji, which means he's not very far from Shirakawa, or Shio, he's not far from Shio. I don't like Shio in the dark like she is. That is some ominous shit. Like her just in the dark looking at him through the rain at that bus stop. That's ominous 101 right there. This seems like a red flag. But the thing is, I don't know if it's a red herring. I don't know if it's a red flag or a red herring. I don't know if the show wants us to think that Shiho is tricking Eiji to get some other ulterior motive out of him. Or if it's genuine and she's naive. The setting of this scene would have me believe that she is actually way smarter than he's giving, and we, as the audience, are giving her credit for, and she's playing him. But we don't know why. We don't know if she is or not, and we don't know what the results is going to be. So this was pretty ominous. I'm not going to lie. And then he's like, oh, I rushed here in a taxi, but I had trouble finding this place. Yeah, that's not a good sign. If he doesn't know where he's at and he's not familiar with that layout, he doesn't know how to get out of there. That's not good. And she's like, oh, you're all wet, you poor thing. He's like, oh, I know a place that serves really good Darjeeling, but I don't really know this area. And she's like, oh, there's what is a dotor? What is that? Yeah, what is this? Oh, it's a Japanese retail company that specializes in coffee roasting. Oh, is that like their version of Dunkin' or Starbucks, maybe? A dotor? I'm fascinated. Okay. Also, a generic coffee shop would be what an 18-year-old would recommend. That's actually pretty understanding. So yeah, she sets up their date with the umbrella. Like, my dude, Eiji, you didn't bring an umbrella. You're letting her do the umbrella. You are pretty useless, my friend. And also the fact that she's leading you away from this public location. You're not familiar with the area. My dude, this has danger written all over it. All over it. Okay. The polar bear with the scars, which looks straight out of Beastars or a Yakuza thing. We did not see him at the bar. I don't think that this fox was at the bar, because the fox at the bar had like a mustache and looked a little bit different. So I don't think it's him, but I don't trust these guys. I don't trust them at all that are following behind. Y'all. This episode ended on another cliffhanger, and now what's crazy is Goriki, the doctor from the beginning, is missing. So we don't know about him. This whole thing with the missing girl, we conveniently did not talk much about it in terms of Odakawa and the girl in the apartment, or the voice in the apartment. But is there anybody in the apartment? Because nobody answered when he talked to him. So we don't know about the girl. We didn't get Rui or Imai in this episode. We did find out the one guy from the Homo sapiens is doing the lunch show. We don't know what the other guy is doing. We don't know what the social media guy is doing, but this other guy that maybe lost his phone, who knows what he's going to have going on. This episode felt like a setup episode, but it also gave a lot of exposition from Dobu's standpoint of why he's doing the things that he's doing. And we know Dobu and Big Diamond are working together, but Big Diamond is the one that's kind of corrupt, not the entire police force. And Dobu's boss needs to find the missing girl because she's like their classmate's daughter, and they need to make sure she's okay. And so yeah, and then there's this Yano guy involved. Y'all, I'm gonna have to rewatch this episode before episode 5 or episode 4. We're not even ready for 5 yet. I've got to rewatch this episode before episode 4. But my mind is reeling. I will probably check out the comments for episode 1 as it comes out on Patreon before looking at episode 4. But y'all, I am obsessed. I am officially obsessed. This 3rd episode did its job. Its job was to get me hooked on this series. I am all in on the mystery. I love Odakawa. Odakawa is such a great main character. I don't fully get him, but this episode, his character in it, I really, really liked and appreciated. So there's that. But I'm ready to hear your thoughts down below. We're going to see where this mystery takes us into episode 4. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Odd Taxi. Bye!